Today we'll be taking a look at the newest Neptunia game for the PlayStation 4. It's called Cyberdimension Neptunia 4 Goddesses Online. Now, this is a spin-off game, but to me it feels more like something that could be part of the main series. It features a fun storyline and very well done music, but the most notable points about this game are the vastly improved graphics, introduction of real-time combat, and new dungeons instead of the same ones we've seen for the last 7 years. It's not all good news, however, as there are technical problems which we'll be talking about later in the video. There's lots to discuss and look at, so let's get started. I'm sure many viewers will be at least somewhat aware of the Neptunia series, but even if you aren't, you can still jump in without any prior experience. There is a crash course of the series at the beginning of the game to get you up to speed, narrated by Neptune herself. That being said, if you're a newcomer, many of the in-jokes will just go right over your head. 4 Goddesses Online has a silly and fun story. The goddesses get an early access code to a new MMORPG of the same name. It's the whole game within a game sort of thing. As if the humor wasn't meta enough to begin with. It's interesting to see how the characters discuss each game mechanic as it's introduced. It makes you feel like you're discovering the game with them in a way. Cyberdimension was developed by Tamsoft, the same people who did the hack-and-slash spin-offs Neptunia U and Megatagmension. Here they decided to make it a mock MMO that still follows the game flow of a traditional Nep game, but with gameplay additions and tweaks to make it more akin to an MMO. Navigating dungeons is easy due to the fast movement speed, and because battles are real-time, you don't get sucked into a fight by accidentally coming into contact with enemies. If you want to abort a fight, just run away. Bringing up the menu doesn't pause the game, and it's structured in a way so it doesn't obscure the screen too much. You can still move the character around while you're in the menu. I like that because I can have the big map up on the screen. In terms of battle mechanics, you can lock onto enemies with R1 and attack with the square button. The camera goes a bit too low when you lock on though, so it's sometimes a bit difficult to see what's going on. Skills are brought up by pressing the L1 button and then pressing the corresponding face button. That's a very console MMO thing to do, and so is how you select the items. The D-pad rotates through the item slots, and triangle activates it. Honestly, I find that sort of thing a bit annoying. That's not really the game developer's fault though, but rather a restriction of controllers in general. I'd infinitely prefer to use number keys. Cyberdimension is going to come out on Steam next year, but I doubt they'll add proper keyboard and mouse controls. They'll probably just let you map keys to whatever equivalent controller buttons you want and not fix this thing. But if they do, I'll be very happy.
Just let me use the numbers. Mechanical keyboard.
You can switch characters on the fly even while battling, which is convenient when one of the party members fall. And they will fall since their AI is a bit stupid. Speaking of party members, you've got 8 characters to choose from. The CPUs and the CPU candidates. They all have their own fighting styles and weapons. I like Nepgear quite a bit, and I also like to use her as the party leader because of her ranged attacks. Uni is good too, but she moves forward when she shoots, which is a bit annoying. Lan is nice to have in the party as well, because she can heal everyone. The goddesses can't transform because they're playing a game after all, but you do get access to their HDD forms a bit later into the game as separate characters. In other words, you get into situations where the real goddesses talk to the AI of their NPC versions of themselves.
You might not understand what I'm saying, but in other games, I actually transform. I'm serious.
This doesn't apply to the CPU candidates, by the way, so no purple sister for me, sad face. There are many characters from previous games like Uzume, Pludia, and Pishi, but unfortunately, none of them are playable. At least they got Compa back though. It was a bit strange having her absent in Sega Hard Girls. You can't just split the pair. The graphics in 4 Goddesses Online are such a huge upgrade from any Neptunia game that came before. The dungeons are, for a change, not recycled PS3 dungeons, and let's face it, the Neptunia games on the PS3 look pretty dated for even that system. The dungeons are much bigger and more interesting than the old ones. The environments have a very realistic look, with nice looking grass and trees. The lighting system does a pretty good job with different times of days, and the shadows actually look pretty impressive, I think. The new outfits are cool too. I'm always a fan of alternate outfits on characters since it's nice to see something new. Games like these are always a good opportunity to do this sort of thing with. It's funny how a game that was originally unique because of its sci-fi setting feels fresh now because of the fantasy-style visuals. But like I mentioned earlier, there are performance issues. I'm just using a regular PS4, so I don't know how much of this applies to the PS4 Pro, but frame rates can change anywhere from 60 all the way down to under 30. You'd think the PS4 would be able to handle this sort of game. Maybe they should have just toned down some of the graphics to enhance the performance. Like, for example, is this motion blur really necessary? Not to mention, it's a bit annoying to begin with. Or maybe it doesn't use that much horsepower and it was actually implemented to somewhat mask the frame rate fluctuations? Who knows? It actually doesn't bother me as much as I thought it might, but there are some other weird issues that crop up on occasion too. I had a weird instance where one of the cutscenes was really stuttery, and then after the cutscene, the game was basically unplayable, so I had to exit the dungeon to fix it. I also got stuck in a boss, and once I couldn't even move the character at all, like not even attacking or anything. Switching characters around fixed that issue, but it's not something you want to do while fighting a boss. And what are they doing here? And sometimes the enemies glitch out. I've had some of the bigger enemies land on top of the characters, or even on some uneven bits of the scenery, which makes them a bit hard to hit. And sometimes nothing happens when you reach an event marker, which is a bit awkward. These are all a bunch of little issues, but they add up and happen somewhat frequently. It seems Cyberdimension needed a little more time in the oven. Oh, and the game takes several minutes to load up, with 2 different loading screens. So that's fun. Since this is a Tamsoft game, you get some character customization options like you do with Senran Kagura, for example. There are other outfits and different accessories you can buy and get. These cat suits are free DLC you can download from the store, for example. Actually, all DLC is free right now. I'm guessing there will be some that actually cost money in the future. And why are these DLC to begin with? Why not just have them in the game in general? I like the electronic music they normally use in these games, but this game certainly benefits with the more orchestral style they went with. You can choose between English and Japanese voiceovers. I always liked the English voiceovers in NEP games. Noir does have a new voice actor, but I still think her voice is pretty good, though it's still something I've got to get used to. This reminds me that I never mentioned that Vert has been voiced by the same person who voices Rom since Mega Dimension. That's quite a vocal range she's got there, and I actually didn't even notice at first. Not all cutscenes are voiced, which is too bad, but pretty standard for NEP games in general. Even though For Goddesses Online is a mock MMORPG, it actually does have a multiplayer co-op function where you can tackle dungeons together with other people. I don't have PlayStation Plus right now, so I can't test that. From what I've read online and been told by some viewers is that multiplayer seems to be really laggy and buggy. Personally, I don't care that much about it anyways, but if you are interested in online play, I would recommend doing a little research on the subject. And that's a review of Cyberdimension Neptunia For Goddesses Online for the PlayStation 4. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun playing the game despite all of the problems it has. I really hope they'll continue with this kind of real-time gameplay in future games, as long as the problems get ironed out. I also did an unboxing video of the limited edition of Cyberdimension, so check that out if you haven't done so yet. And if you want more, follow me on the things. I've got a thing on most of the things. Twitter for updates, Twitch for streams, Patreon if you want to show some love and get behind the scenes updates, and Discord for chatting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.